This is my project Epic Trail Truck, and in the last video I did a lot of modifications to it, like for example adding this body and loads more, but today I got even more modifications, so let's get to it. The first thing I'm going to do is quite a standard thing to do to a trail truck, and that's going to be adding lights to this body. And these lights are actually meant to be for a Toyota Land Cruiser made by Killerbody. And well, obviously this is a Jeep Cherokee body and not a Toyota Land Cruiser, and also made by Injora and not Killerbody. But I think the lights in this kit are exactly the ones I need for this body, so I will try if this is gonna work. So since these lights aren't meant for this body, I'm just going to lay everything out here first to see if it's gonna work on my body. And then I'm going to glue the lights in, instead of gluing the lights in and then wiring everything up, and then coming to the conclusion that it doesn't work. Man, I don't know why this keeps happening. I'm currently editing this video and again, just like in the last video, I lost some of the video clips. 2, 3, I don't exactly know how many clips, they're gone. I have no idea where they are. And in those clips I was going to lay out all the lights and all the wires and wire everything up to see how it all works. And I came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work perfectly how I wanted it to. Because first of all the LEDs were white instead of orange, white and red, what I expected them to be. That wouldn't be much of a problem since the light buckets inside of the body were colored already, so most of the lights would work just fine. But the way the lights were wired together and were going to be controlled by the control module that came with the lights to give indicators and brake lights and that kind of stuff, the way all the lights were wired up didn't work perfectly as I wanted to, which meant I had to color in one of the light buckets orange to make them an extra blinker light. But I didn't have the right Sharpie to do that, because you can perfectly color them in with Sharpies. But I don't have an orange one, so I was going to come back on that later on in the video, where I'm going to fit all the lights properly. But yeah, all the clips in between, they're gone. I don't know why, but for now let's continue on with some other modifications. Alright, the next modification is going to be as well aesthetic as performance, because I obviously added this Jeep Cherokee hardbody, which is way heavier than the stock Lexan body, which means that the suspension is a lot more compressed than it should be, because this is all the travel it has, and it sits like this, and that's all the travel it has left. That's not a lot. So I've got these fancy aluminium piggyback shocks, and we're gonna put these on there. So these shocks currently don't have any oil in them, but they still feel pretty good actually for no oil. But I have to put oil in there obviously, and the oil I'm going to use is the lightest oil I have, this 15 weight oil, which should hopefully give the car a very realistic suspension feel. So yeah, let's put some oil in here. Alright, let's start off by taking the shock apart and take the reservoir off as well. Then we can put some oil in the shock. Put the piston up and down a little bit to get all the air bubbles out. Then we can put the cap back on and repeat the process on the reservoir. Then we screw that back on. Then we take the bleed screw out and we can fill up the shock completely. Then we put the bleed screw back in. And then we reassemble the entire shock and then we have a perfectly smooth shock. Yeah, I'd say that feels pretty nice. And if you compare that to a non-oil shock. Yeah. I like that. Right, now I gotta repeat that process on all the other 3 shocks and then I can put them on the car. Alright, so I got them all done now, but since there are some relatively cheap Chinese shocks, which I bought on Amazon, they're not all identical and some of them are way stiffer than the other ones, and that's pretty annoying, but I'm going to put the stiffer ones in the rear and the softer ones in the front and just hope for the best. Hope that it's gonna work, and if not, I'll have to figure out how I'm going to tune them so that they will be equally stiff. So yeah, let's put them in the car and see how it turns out. Well, it happened again. The next clip is also gone, and in this clip I was going to unbox a brand new set of wheels and tires from Injora Racing and put them on the car, but yeah, the clip is gone. Sorry for that. Let's just continue on with the video just like nothing happened, and then you'll see the rest of the build. Alright, I got 2 of these wheels assembled and put on the car. Well, not fully assembled. I need to put all the other screws in there still, but just to see how it looks. And while I was doing that, I noticed I really have to do something about the suspension. It's not good as it is right now. But I do really love these wheels, how they look. They look really aggressive, but that's not really the look that this car is supposed to be. So on the other side, I've now got the wheels from my T-Rex 4. These are the BF Goodrich Mud Terrain tires. They are different rims, obviously. I will change them out to the rims on the other side, but I think these tires are better. They're better suited for this type of vehicle, probably. Because these are actually tires you can get in real life, and the tires on the other side, I don't think you can get them in real life. So yeah, I probably have to go with these tires. So yeah, I will have to take them off these wheels and put them on the other wheels, and then I'll see you when I have that all put together. Alright, so swapping these tires onto these rims is not gonna work, because as you can see right here, this rim is quite a bit smaller than that rim, which means the inner diameter of this tire is way bigger than the one of this tire. So yeah, it's not gonna fit. So I'm just going to assemble all these wheels just like this with all the screws in it just as it should be. Go put them on the car and just try it out, just see how it looks, give it a little run, and if I still think these tires will look way better, I might have to buy another set of these, which will be quite expensive. Yeah, I did not think about that. Alright, the wheels are fully assembled and I've put them on the car and I just gave it a little test drive. And the fact that the tires don't look as realistic didn't really bother me. But it might have been because I got distracted by the suspension, because the suspension is way too stiff, so I really got to do something about that. But before I'm going to do that, I'm going to do one more modification, and that might actually help with the suspension. So this modification might be the entire reason why I built this car, and it's this. It's a roof tent for an RC car. And if you've seen the first video about this car was inspired by a car I saw in a vacation. It was a Jeep Cherokee with a roof tent, and I loved it. So this is a roof tent I found on Amazon. It just folds out like an actual roof tent. It has windows and an actual entrance, and you can open and close everything. So yeah, that's really cool. And it has a ladder that folds out as well. Well, when I bought this there were quite a couple of issues, because as you can see these screws have pulled out and there's actually a screw missing, and there were quite some issues. But the main thing still works, and I managed to get some money back from it, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna use it because it still works as it should and you don't really notice the missing bits. So yeah, just like this it really works, and it has quite some weight to it. So with this on the roof, it might help a little bit with the suspension. So yeah, let's put this on the roof of the car. Alright, now to figure out where and how I'm going to put this tent on the roof is quite a challenge. But I think I want to put it a bit in the front of the roof, so the weight is more to the center of the car instead of all the way at the back. But I want to move it slightly backwards, so there is a little bit of space here to potentially put a light bar or something in the future. I don't know if I want to do that, but then there's at least place to do that. And then if you look at the bottom of the tent, you can see these feet. They're the same on both sides. But here they're right on the edge of the tent, because this is all fabric that can push back. And here you can see it is a little bigger, because that's the part where the folding mechanism sits. Then on the roof you have these little things, I don't know what you call them, but these lines. And these feet just barely don't fit nicely in there. One of them sits like on top and the other one sits right against it, if that makes sense. I don't know if you can understand what I'm trying to tell you, but what it comes down to is that you can pretty nicely put these feet against this edge and this feet is on this edge, and that way it sits relatively in the middle. So that way I know where the feet have to be, like in this direction of the roof. But now on this direction it's a bit more of a challenge. But I think I can measure out the distance between these feet and mark that out on the roof, and then I can make the holes. And then hopefully the roof will be in a position where I want it to be. Alright, so that was quite a challenge to explain to you guys, but I hope it makes sense what I just told you. But if not, I'll just make the holes, put the roof tent on, and then you'll just see the final result, and if my theory that I just explained has worked or not. Alright, there it is. The roof tent is on the car and it looks amazing. It's exactly how I wanted it to be. And now I can't wait to take it out on the trail. But before we can do that, I really need to sort out the suspension, because the shocks are still way too stiff. The extra weight of the roof tent did absolutely nothing to it. So yeah, let's figure out how we're gonna tune the shocks so it works better. Alright, so how am I going to modify these shocks? Well, inside these shocks is like a piston that moves up and down in the oil. And there is 1 or 2 or 3 or how many little holes in the piston. And the oil that's pushing through the hole when you put the piston up and down, the oil pushing through that hole, that's what gives the shock the dampening. And I've seen when I filled these shocks that there's only one hole in these pistons, which is very, very little. So I'm going to open it up, get all the oil out, get the piston out, and make an extra or 2 extra holes in the piston. And just try to get the shock to a softness level that I like. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of trial and error, but I will do it on this one and then I'll show you what the difference is like. Alright, so here's the piston, and as you can see there are 3 holes in it now, and there used to be only 1. So hopefully this should make quite a difference to the dampening on the shock, and will make it much softer, hopefully. So I'm going to reassemble the shock and then we'll see how it turns out. Alright, there it is with the modified shocks on there. It's way better like this with the shocks modified. It's still not perfect though. The oil part of the shocks is alright, but the springs are still way too soft. I had to put maximum preload on there to make it kind of rideable. So it's not ideal. I would like to have some stiffer springs, but it's alright for now. So yeah, now it's time to go and make sure we get those lights properly working. Alright, so what I just said there was a complete lie, because yesterday I went to a store to pick up a new RC car. I don't know which video will be out first, this one or the video with that car, so I'm not telling you what car it was. But when I was there I picked up some new springs, which are actually meant for a Traxxas vehicle. I don't know which one, maybe a Rustler or a Slash or something. But these springs are a little longer and a lot stiffer than the stock springs on these shocks. And now it's maybe a little too stiff, but at least it's a lot better. So yeah, that's the spring setup for now. Now it's time to go and add the last couple of details to this car. Alright, so one detail that's probably crucial on an overlanding Jeep like this, a snorkel. So I'm going to add this snorkel right here. I'll have to make some holes, 1 right here and 2 right here to screw it on. And now I have a snorkel on it. Alright, snorkel is on there, looking good. And now it's finally time to go and add the lights to the body. And I've been rethinking it a little bit. I actually don't need an orange Sharpie to color in this light, I think. I think I can do it in a different way and make sure that's not a blinker, just a headlight. So yeah, I will lay everything out and then I'll show you guys what I've come up with. Alright, I got everything laid out, really messy right now, but I'll try to explain what I'm doing right here. So in the front we've got these big 5mm LEDs that go in the main light buckets. And then I've got these smaller ones which are 3mm LEDs. These will go in the other light buckets. The slightly smaller ones underneath. And then to the rear, here we have per side actually 2 lights, because that's how this kit is supposed to be. I don't know why, but... So per side we have 2 of these that go in the main light bucket. There are 2 holes. One is a 5mm, one a 3mm, but I'll make an adapter to make that fit. So the same on this side obviously. Then we have the indicators. I've got this set. They have 3 lights, one 5mm, one 3mm and another 3mm. You're supposed to put the 5mm in the front, but that doesn't work on this body because the holes that I've got are only 3mm for the indicators. So I'll put the 3mm in the rear and a 2mm as well, because there are 2 holes in there and that will fit perfectly because we have 3 indicators per side. And then the other one, which has a really long cable, can go to the front again. And then the same on the other side obviously. And that all connects up to this control box, which is then wired up to the receiver, and it's actually designed so you can put one of these wires connected up to your servo, so the indicators turn on when you steer, and you can put the other wire connected to your ESC, so the lights will react on how you're driving. But I personally don't like how that works, because with that one it's like when you accelerate, only then the front lights will shine bright, and otherwise they will be really dim. And the same in the rear, then the rear lights will only go bright when you go in reverse, but I personally just don't like that. I want the front lights to be bright all the time and the rear ones are a little less important, they can just be a little more dim. So I've actually wired it up to a switch, and because it's on the switch it always thinks there's a signal, and then it always turns the front lights bright, and only when I press the button it changes the signal, which makes the front lights turn dim and the rear lights turn bright. But I'm never going to do that because I want the front lights to be bright. But just by putting it on the switch, I can kind of trick the system in thinking it's going forwards. But it's not. And then with the blinkers, it's the same thing. They turn on only if you even turn a little bit with the wheel. Which is not realistic, because when you're driving and just make slight adjustments, the blinkers, the turn signals will go on, and I don't like that. So I've actually wired that up to this switch, and now I can actually use this switch to turn on the turn signals. So yeah, that's way better, I think. So that's kind of the plan. I hope it makes sense because it's really messy right now. But I'll put everything in place and make some adapters where needed to fit the 3mm lights in the 5mm light buckets. And then when everything is wired up and put into place, I'll show you again. And in case it didn't make sense what I just told you, then you'll just see the final result. Alright, got all the lights in there now, and to do that I had to take the interior out as well. And while I had the interior out, I added a driver to the car. And there he is, it's Tim. Meet Tim, hello Tim. He's a little small for this car actually, but if you have a close look at the interior, the proportions are quite off in the interior anyways. So I'll leave him in for now, and it always looks better than an empty seat. So there's our driver Tim, and he will give us a quick demonstration of the lights. So I'll turn the car on for him. There we go. Then as you can see, we have the front lights now on the dim mode. These are just always on, they're fixed in the bumper. And in the rear you can see the reflection in the wall. There we have the rear lights shining as well. And then when we press a button for the channel 3, we change the front lights to brighter. The rear lights go slightly dimmer then actually, but you don't really notice that too much. It's mostly the front lights getting brighter. And then we also have the indicators obviously. So instead of it happening while we turn, it happens when we switch the channel 7 switch. There we have our turn signal. It's not too bright in the front, but in the rear it's pretty bright. You can't really see it right now, but you have to believe me, you can really see that. So that's pretty cool. Now there's only one last thing we have to do to finish off this car. Because it is quite obvious that this car is a Jeep, but it doesn't say Jeep anywhere. So that's why I've got these Jeep stickers. We can put them on the front and on the rear to finally finish off this car and make it an actual Jeep. Alright, there we have it. The Jeep Cherokee Overland Trail Track, or however you want to call it, is finished. And even though there were some slight mishaps during the build, I think it still turned out absolutely awesome, especially for my first time building anything like this. And now it's obviously time to go and drive this thing, which I will be doing in the next video, because I'm taking this car to the Trail Hunters, the Trails Beyond event, which should hopefully be a lot of fun. But as I said, that will be in the next video. So for now, if you think this car looks awesome and you enjoyed this video, please give the video a like. And if you want to see me drive this car at the event and maybe some more modifications in the future, you gotta subscribe to my channel. And then I'll see you in the next video. Yo!